Oh, good. That's great then. Will there be a mythic phase in the Kill Jaden fight? I don't know. One thing I was actually thinking though, I will be doing a review on Timber Sargeras hopefully after this tonight. But one thing I was going to discuss in that, because someone asked me about that, and I was thinking there might be an easy way to test it, because what you notice if you look at normal and heroic Kill Jaden is behind you, Illidan and Valen are both sort of fighting demons, presumably to try and help out. And then in a phase during Kill Jaden, Illidan comes down and gives you his sight to help you with one of the phases. Valen does nothing. So I was thinking maybe a mythic-only phase would be where Valen gets involved. But if that happens, there would presumably be sound files of it. So I haven't really looked, I don't really look into the data mine sound files. There are people that do though. So if anyone happens to know of any sound files attached to Valen, which have not so far been used in Heroic and Normal, then maybe. You are... oh my god. A 27 member in the guild, and my guild leader told me he would replace us every time to the mythic raid. What do you mean replace us? If you're in a mythic guild and you're being told you're definitely not getting into any mythic progress, then yes. Because at that point you're not really a mythic raider, so you should certainly move. If that's what you're actually talking about. But, I mean, 27 isn't an excessive number now. I mean, we're on that. But, because especially with summer coming up as well, you have to take account of the fact people are going to go on holiday. But if you're being told categorically, oh yeah, no, you're not raiding, then yes. He will replace 7 peoples that didn't participate with others. Oh, sorry, I don't get that. I don't mean. Didn't participate in what? Didn't participate in what? It replaced 7 people that didn't participate. Hi, Shamrock. I'm fine, thank you. Yes. What do I think of each boss in TOS? I actually quite like the bosses. I quite like them from a mechanics point of view. Kill Jaden was disappointing, I have to say. It may not be on Mythic, but on Normal and Heroic it's disappointing. Not because of like any ease or anything like that, although it is. But just because it just seems a bit dull. Let's have a look. Yoda Soda. Oh no. I'll get Helim to just explain that one. Recently left a guild due to a toxic environment and had no raid leader. That's a pretty bad combination. Now I'm trying to look for a new guild on a 100% new server. But everyone recruiting just wants damage or in lock. Unfortunately, a lot of people... lots and lots of people, it's not just players, that people in general will just think high numbers must mean you're good. It is unfortunate. It's not... Also, it's not... What class are you playing as well? Because I know I have a high proportion of people who play Ret on my channel, but not everyone. So I just have to be clear on that point. So, Helene, what you're saying is that, for example, the people who will not participate in First Day of Mythic. Still not 100% sure. Oh, Shadow Priest. I don't know how desirable. Shadow Priest, the problem you've got at the moment, much like us, is the... I mean, there are some fights, perhaps okay, but there are some fights where they're not looking too clever at the moment. So, it is a difficult one. It's not an ideal... Like, when just before a tier has started is usually a pretty good time to look for a guild. Once a tier has started is usually a pretty bad time to look for a guild. Because the guilds who are going to do okay, and that you can clearly see are going to do okay, have got their roster sorted. Doesn't mean to say that there's no room for, like, there isn't the odd little thing they're looking for. But by and large, they've got their roster sorted. Because if they hadn't, then they're going to really stall at the start of the tier, and it's going to be a nightmare. So, yeah, it's not an easy one. The problem with you've presumably got at the moment is if you're not able to get those logs, because if you're not raiding, I don't know if you're raiding or not, then that's just going to get you further and further behind. It's a stunningly bad time to try and look for another guild at the start of a tier. Unless, as I say, you play a class and spec that is massively in demand. And at the moment, that's like Warlock, maybe Arms Warrior, or some of the key healers. Yeah, I mean, our roster's pretty good. We could do with another, like, Warlock. We've only got one Warlock. But we are sort of where we want to be with it. So, let's have a look. Okay, let's start again. So, tomorrow will be the first day of Mythic. Yes, good. He will not take 7 people. Well, of course, you've got 20, roster of 27, so he'll take 20. That's fine. Then, the day later... Oh, hang on a minute. So, what you're saying is, he's going to take 20 people on the first raid day of your roster of 27, and then he's going to bring all of the other 7 in the next raid day, regardless, is what you're saying. That's a really stupid way to do it. You have to take what is considered to be your best group. You can't rotate people into progress raids. I suppose it doesn't really matter whether you're doing heroic or mythic, whatever is your progress for your guild. You can't just rotate people. It doesn't really matter for heroic. What am I talking about? Behave. For mythic, you can't just rotate people in because it's their turn. That's just rubbish. Because you're not going to kill the boss. You have to take your best people. But it also means what you shouldn't actually be saying these 20 people are going to be raiding on the first day, Wednesday, or whatever. You should actually. Why are you even doing mythic on Wednesday? Why aren't you doing like your farm runs, heroic and normal stuff for tier? Anyway. So you shouldn't be doing that. What you should be doing is saying, okay, these are the people we're going to start off with, and as soon as some people start to repeatedly cock up, we're going to replace you with one of the 7 people on the bench. If a raid leader is specifically telling you that you are unlikely to get a progress spot, then that is not ideal. It all seems very odd to me. This all seems a bit strange. But if they are actually saying to you you're unlikely to get a raid spot, they are basically telling you that you should move. And unlike in Yoda Soda's case, at least you're in a guild at the moment. You could just try and find a guild quickly and quietly and still be raiding while you're doing it, so you're still getting logs. At least in heroic. I mean, heroic logs will go, plus your Nighthog mythic logs will go a long way. At the moment, they're not going to obviously require mythic Team of Sargeras logs just yet. Not for a few weeks. But yeah, it's not the number. As I say, having 27 would not put me off. Well, that's what we've got. But having 27 and they're going to just rotate around regardless of who seems best for it seems a bit silly to me. And also, well, I wouldn't wait for the ideal guild. It doesn't exist. But at least another one. Oh, hiya. Yeah, the physics of Argus appearing. Unfortunately, someone completely snookered it. It was bittersweet. Someone linked me a screenshot with one of Azeroth's moons just behind it, clearly showing that Argus is between us and at least one of Azeroth's moons, which did 2 things. First of all, it completely obliterated any point in trying to work out the physics of Argus, because it basically doesn't have any. At the same time, it did also completely shoot dead in the water all these people who still now insist, oh no, it's just a portal, it's just a wormhole. Is it? Hell. It's there. Do I like Kill Jaden? No, I don't. The reason I don't like it is because ultimately there's not much to it. Obviously, it'll be a different thing on Mythic, but in Heroic and Normal, there's not much to it. You've got a few mechanics. You've got, first of all, when Armageddon comes in, you need to go out and soak. And then you get another bit. I can't remember the names of all of these. There's the ability with the giant circle on it as well. The only time when it gets slightly interesting for most people, is if you've got the giant circle on you at the same time as an orb's coming down that might blow you back. So you've got to go out, get rid of the circle first, then get back in quickly. But, I mean, once you know what to do with each of the individual mechanics, it's straightforward. It's not like in some fights where because the mechanics run together, it makes them more complicated. It doesn't. Even when the mechanics do run together, it doesn't actually make them any more complicated to deal with. And, you know, I mean, we took like a dozen pulls to kill it. And you've got to bear in mind, a couple of those pulls were, we were just lagging madly. It was impossible to do it. You know, we pulled it, mad lag, couldn't do anything. Pulled it again, same thing. So then we had to reform the raid. Hi, Salgin. We had to reform the raid, go back in, then it was fine. And then we had another technical pull. It wasn't really a pull. When we decided to use Vantus runes just to make sure, because at this point, you know, we'd done our split runs. We wanted to kill Jaden. We still had a couple of hours left last night, but obviously we wanted to kill it. We didn't want to be messing about, so we used Vantus runes in the end, even though they're really expensive at the moment, just to make sure. And someone failed to use the Vantus rune correctly, and they ended up pulling the boss. I don't know how they managed that. So I just think it's uninspiring. So you're in heroic normal guild and do casual mythic once both are cleared. I don't know really whether that's good. Average item level of 897. I mean, all I know is you should probably. I mean, I suppose it depends on what requirements you have and how easy. Because I don't understand with heroic guilds how they actually manage to maintain a roster. I've got to be honest, because for a lot of people, you can pug heroic. If you're willing to spend the weekend just waiting to try and get into a group, you can pug it. And if you do it every week, you're going to have the achievements to get in as well. So, and of course, the item level isn't the be-all and end-all. It also depends on what your artifacts on. Like I've slacked on my hunter. My hunter was doing the split runs, and I do appalling damage, but I don't have convergence yet. So that's possibly part of it. Wipe like 7 times for people stepping out of Armageddon soaks. That is an interesting thing. Yeah, we had a few pulls like that where people, they went in and then because it happens at the same time as the beam, they see a load of people take damage off it, it's gone, it's finished. And then they went out of it and blew us all up. But, you know, that was I think that was a couple of pulls and then it was like, knocks that on the head. I mean, that's actually really silly as well because you can see the debuff. You get a debuff when you soak. Not if you soak with an immunity, the big one, fair enough. But the other ones, the small ones, you get a debuff. So you wait till you get the debuff. Then you know you've soaked it. Pugging heroic is canned. I imagine it is. I don't like pugging anything, I have to say. But I do know when we've done alt raids in the guild, we've not usually had a lot of people, so we've tended to pug a few people. So I imagine if you can get into one of those guild runs, obviously it's easier to do if you play a spec or class that's in demand. But I don't know. I'd say that's the thing. I don't really understand the world of heroic raiding, because I say, and I don't understand the world of pugging either, because I try and steer clear from that. So I don't know how easy or difficult these things are. But I know that there will be guilds doing heroic pugs every weekend that actually can kill, you know, who do it on characters that they've cleared heroic on, so they'll know what they're doing on the fights. So if you're lucky, you can get into one of those runs. You're going to see Iron Maiden. Can't you just download an album? I've never understood going to concerts. I've been to a few concerts and I've never understood them. Every time I'm there, I keep thinking to myself, I'm uncomfortable and I could just be listening to this in the comfort of my own armchair at home with some biscuits. Never seen the appeal in like life. I suppose for certain acts it might have been alright. If I was, you know, old enough to have been able to go to Queen concerts, for example, that might have been different. But I don't know. I don't get live concerts. I just don't understand them. Because, you know, they bring out albums. They even bring out live DVDs. You could just wait for the DVD of the live concert to come out and just watch it at home. I don't get it. I'm not saying people shouldn't go to them. I just don't get it. No, it's not the same. It's a lot more comfortable at home. Anyway. But yeah, so if you're going to miss your guild's heroic clear, then that's bad luck because you're going to be missing out on a week's worth of loot. We've got someone doing that tomorrow. That was clever. Having to do something. I don't understand why it would have... That's the thing, I don't understand actually with some people. Like, I can understand a concert because on particular dates, but we've got some people who like have other things. It's like, couldn't you have put that off? Because you're going to miss a week's worth of loot. I certainly don't want to be missing it next week. We got rubbish trinket drops this week, and by rubbish I mean none. So I'm hoping for better trinket luck next week because I'm sick of the trinkets I've got. I've actually had I've always felt behind the curve with trinkets for most of Legion actually. Only recently when I got the 915 Convergence of Fates did I sort of feel, oh, I've got a decent trinket now. I suppose I got a 900 Horn of Valor, which isn't too bad. But they'll quickly get dated again. Yeah, I mean, we got... the only one that dropped in a run that I was in, because we split, as I say, that's the downside to split as well. You see all the nice stuff drop in the other one, but it wasn't quite like that. We had one Infernal Cinders drop on normal in the other group. But we did have on Sisters of the Moon... next one is mine, yeah. But the next one will also be in the other split. That's the problem. It will keep dropping in the other split. That's how it will work. Oh, I suppose we'll be killing it on Mythic, though, this week. I'll have to plan my coining strategy very carefully this week. Because the first week is really awkward for coining. Because you don't know how many Mythic bosses you're going to kill. Because you think to yourself, oh, we're going to kill 4, but then... If you plan to coin the 4th boss and you don't kill 4, you could have coined a heroic boss. Halim, no, if you have been specifically told that you are unlikely to be on progress, I wouldn't. You know, you can't just... Because you're not going to have 7... Or you'd need 8 people to go on holiday all at once, by the sounds of it. There are some guilds with more than that. There's, you know, we were just watching a stream before I came on here where they were on Sisters, so they've killed 4 on Mythic. Now, okay, these are guilds who have way better item level, and obviously they'll have done PTR testing and stuff like that, so they know what they're doing. But still, they're rolling over. If I were you, Halim, I would at least look around. Not necessarily say anything, but I would at least look to see what's there, because you never know. But yeah, so I don't know how many we're going to kill. But it is, you know, I've used up all my coins last week, getting very little of use. So it will, yeah, I'll have to put my... I'll have to put some thought into which ones I want to coin. Because it's not straightforward, because sometimes, like, you'd think, oh, you coin the tier ones of the tier pieces you don't have, and trinket bosses, and there's usually fairly safe. There's usually one boss that drops a good tier piece and one of your good trinkets. But I don't really know. Look around for other guilds, Slim. Look on WoW Progress, see who's looking. And if there's nothing, you know, and don't like just apply to a guild, talk to an officer and explain the situation, all the rest of it, and see how your logs would shape up with the logs of the guild that you're looking at. But so yeah, I actually don't know how many we're going to end up killing. I really don't know how many you're supposed to at our level. I'm not sure what our average item level is. I think mine is now... Well, it depends on what I'm using. By tomorrow, I should... I've upgraded my legendary belt and good ring. I got the new chest yesterday, so that's already upgraded. So I could do with upgrading the cloak, and I'll be able to do that before the raid tomorrow. So certainly for Mythic, I will have all the legendaries I intend to use in Mythic upgraded. So I think I'm on about 920 item level, depending on exactly which gear I use. But I think I'm on about 920. But there's some people who are, as I say, in these guilds that are running through them now, are on 930. So not everyone, but certainly some people are on like 930 plus, which is excessive, really. So and sometimes with some fights, of course, a little bit of extra damage or whatever just helps you ease past. You know, you can sometimes get to a bit where you almost get through a phase before a few people die. And like Kill Jaden was a good example yesterday on Heroic, because you have the reflections, are they called? The ads that you go big and you have to, you know, and you spawn some ads of yourself, some copies of yourself, and they have to be killed, but they do a lot of damage. So if you don't kill them really quickly, some people can die. And if you do kill, so just for the sake of killing them a second or two quicker can be the difference between no one dying and a few people dying. And that can mean the difference between ending up killing the boss and not. Is method method is EU, yes. I'm not entirely sure which US guild is really in the frame at the moment. Like, it used to be Blood Legion a few years ago, but then they sort of fell out. Midwinter gave it a go, but I don't think they... I mean, I know they're still going, but I don't think they're going as hard as they were going to try. So I'm not sure that any US guild, unless someone's going to surprise us, is very much in the frame. Limit is it at the moment. I'm fine, thank you, Lamnakan. Will we see Draenor and Outland from Argus? Why would we? Huh? They're nowhere near them. Outland, miles and miles away. They're nowhere near Argus. Anyway, Argus is here now. Wherever Argus was, which was nowhere near Draenor at the time, it's not there now. There's a big hole where it used to be. So, yeah. But I don't even... No. It was nowhere near. Draenor was nowhere near Argus. Like, the Draenei, as we call them now, left Argus. They went all over the place before they landed on Draenor. They were playing basically hide and seek with Kill Jaden. He was following them all over the place. They're hardly likely to have popped off to a planet in the same solar system. That wouldn't have fooled him. No. That's not a good place to hide. But that's what they kept doing. They kept going to a place, Kill Jaden would find them, then they'd go somewhere else, and then he'd find them again. Then they'd go somewhere else. He wasn't very good at sneaking up on them, obviously. But will we see Azeroth at least? Well, of course we should do, shouldn't we? Unless, of course, Blizzard plays something sneaky, and they actually drop us on the dark side of Argus. Well, I say dark side from our point of view. If they place us on the dark side of Argus, then technically we wouldn't see Azeroth. But because it is an interesting question. But the thing is, I mean, we're going to find out, aren't we, soon? Because when the 7.3 patch comes out on PTR, again, start of the PTR cycle, there'll not be much content in it. But one piece of content that surely has to be there is Argus. We've got to at least go to the new zone. That actually may delay it a little bit longer than the other PTRs. I don't know. But you would think... I think there would be an outcry if we didn't. So you would think we'd see it. But all we'll actually see of Azeroth will be the land masses that we already know about that are on the map. So it won't include the rest of Azeroth. Which we don't even know properly what it looks like. There's supposed to be an Azeroth in, like, one of the Wrath Titan places. I can't remember if it's Ulduar or even just Halls of Lightning or something. But that's long since been accepted as not canon anymore. even though it's still there. So yes, I think they'll plonk us somewhere around on this side, and then we'll see Azeroth back. Quite what a mess they'll make of that, I don't know. But I was very disappointed. I was all ready to do some nice calculations as well and try and work out a few things in terms of realistically how far away Argus might be and all the rest of it. And as I say, someone just put that screenshot that said, oh, look, moon here. And it was like, yeah, okay. Well done, Blizzard. Call yourself techies and you get something as silly as that wrong. But it does, it just reminds me of like the Eye of Cthulhu in AQ40, this sort of thing. Do I think Blizzard had a chance to maybe get rid some zones and rework some zones? They tried that in Cataclysm. I think it probably takes a long time and a lot of resources to do it, and whether they'll think it's worth it's another matter. I mean, I didn't like the revamp that they did in Cataclysm, so I don't really want to risk them. All I would like them to do to revamp the old zones is to make them scale for the purpose of leveling. Other than that, just leave them alone. Don't mess them up any more than that. But allow people to just, when they're leveling, just, you know, level with it. Apart from the latest content, I think, you know, I've already said before, you should be able to do, you should have to do the latest content for the latest levels, but for the previous levels, just go where you want. Get whatever quest you want, and it's all fine. So if you want to have someone at level 1 head straight for, say, Blasted Lands and go through the Dark Portal and do TBC stuff, fine. But then the thing is, they would also have to put in the scaling technology for the dungeons then, I guess, as well. Or would they? Maybe they wouldn't. They wouldn't have to. It would just be better hijack. The world is getting bigger and bigger. Well, I don't think... How's removing zones going to help that? They just need... And I don't know what their eventual plan is, but what they ultimately need is... I mean, there's two ways to do it. Oh, yeah, the scale... Well, I would say... What do you mean the scale must stop when you reach top level? There's nowhere else for it to go. But I would say the way to do it is you can either do another version of a zone that already exists for level... That's what I would have done with Cataclysm. Instead of replacing zones with a new zone. So they could have had, for example, I don't know, just an example, say wetlands, which they changed a little bit. They could have left wetlands as alone, but then when you got to like level 80, there's a new wetlands that you go into. And you could change the time zones by talking to a dragon, like you do in Blasted Lands. Because there's two versions of Blasted Lands, and you talk to a dragon, who's disguised as an elf, to change them. That can be quite complicated, though. So the only other thing to do is to create new land masses, which is what they do. So, you know, they did Northrend, they've done Pandaria, we've now got the Broken Isles. Just keep having different land masses pop up and make new zones that way. Because there's, you know, even when you run out of land masses that we might know from, say, Warcraft 3, you know, we don't know. We've only seen, you know, all we can see are like Eastern Kingdoms, Kalimdor, Northrend, Pandaria, Broken Isles. Who's to say there aren't more land masses around the other side of Azeroth that we could go to? Why Blizzard didn't show us the other side of Argus? I'm now beginning to think it's just because they're lazy. And they had this great idea. Someone had this stunning idea. Oh, let's, you know, put Argus in the sky. And they went, great, fantastic. But obviously, it would take a lot of, I suppose, resources to have done it properly with a rotating Argus that also travelled across the sky. And they should have made it a lot smaller as well. I suspect it's this large for the purpose of impact, like, you know. So, yeah. You like going back to old zones to farm stuff, be the pets, blah, blah, blah. Don't want to, with zones the same level as me. Well, tough. That's what it should be like. You shouldn't just go there and mince your way through. You would anyway, naturally, with gear. Like, I do that in zones now. You think about it. In the gear we are now, you know, even the stuff in the latest content we run through quite quickly. But I don't see why you should, you know... I mean, it's like we've got flying. You can get yourself to those places. You should fight them properly. Where's the fun in just like running through stuff and one-shotting them? The others go to Pandaria to see the other side. What? The other side of what? It's the other side of Azeroth we want to see. Argus just looks like a fell-pocked ruin now. I don't think... In fact, this is probably the most interesting part of it. Whatever this is, this huge volcano type thing of Argus. How would we see the other side of Argus from going to somewhere else in Azeroth? For that to happen, Argus has to rotate relative to us, and it's clearly not doing. It's a bit like the moon. Well, that's what I theorised anyway. It's like the moon. The moon doesn't rotate relative to us because it rotates, but at the same rate at which it goes round the Earth. So we only ever see one side of it. But how cool would it be if we're on Argus and I wave from there and people can see me wave from Azeroth? That would be... We'd need telescopes for that. Maybe that would be a new toy. I suspect not, though. The goblins can get working on that one. Because I say, it's a remarkably... I said on that video, it's a remarkably clear atmosphere here. You can actually see the details on Argus. But it also suggests that Argus doesn't have an atmosphere of its... Or at least not an atmosphere with any moisture in it. It's a bit of a problem. But I don't think Blizzard thought about that either. What do I love so much about Paladin? It's mostly from my Dungeons and Dragons days. I just liked the idea that they were fairly good at most things, like jack of all trades, not necessarily master of any High-Rindar. So jack of all trades, master of none. That sort of element to it I quite liked. So it's purely like a role play aspect to it. I didn't like play different classes when I started World of Warcraft. I think, oh, Paladin, that's the one I prefer. I was always going to play a Paladin or nothing, because that's what I liked. I fell in love with the character from Dungeons and Dragons time. Why Blizzard didn't buff our single target damage, I don't know. They haven't said. This is the thing. They haven't said. It was a bit of a surprise when I saw the buffs for anyone yesterday, because it's like in the AMA, they were saying, people were asking them, are we going to expect any buffs this week? And their response could have knocked me down with a feather, because they said, probably not. There might be some PvP ones, is what they actually said. And then what do we get? We get a load of buffs for like several classes. I'm not saying they didn't need them. I don't know. But yeah, we certainly need, not for AoE as you say, but for single target. It's a bit lacking. Very lacking, in fact. Because, I mean, I can sort of demonstrate that quite easily. In the normal run I did yesterday, in the split run, you could see the difference between an AoE fight and a single target fight quite distinctly. Way behind, way behind. And of course, the normal is ideal for being able to test that out, because you're not to like normally I might say, if my damage is lower, it might just be that I'm doing mechanics that at bad times. Whereas on normal, there's not a lot of that to do, so it is a much better test. How do I feel about the overall tuning of normal and heroic? Normal too easy. I know we should go through it, run through it fairly straightforward, but we did it in split runs where some of the alts, mine included, are not great, and we don't necessarily play them brilliantly. Some people play them well, some not so well like me. We should not have just blasted through normal like we did. Heroic, the tuning for heroic was probably okay. Yeah, I would say the tune, apart from, as I say, I don't think it was the problem with the tuning for Kill Jaden. I just don't think it's an interesting fight on heroic. Yes, I've seen some people saying that Argus has a Titan Soul thing. It's much more like a Horcrux type situation. obviously, from reading, when you read Warcraft Chronicles, which is now supposed to be the definitive lore set in stone, and you read that, and Argus is not a Titan soul. However, as some people are saying, and anything could happen at this point, you know, if Sargeras sort of has infused himself with the planet and he's done some sort of Harry Potter, Voldemort, Horcrux type thing with it. I mean, anything can happen at this point. There's no point in even trying to think, oh no, it can't be that because of this, because Blizzard can just go, you know what? They've done it plenty of times in the past. They've just said, all right, we're changing what this thing is now. So who knows? All I do know, I mean, someone else said something interesting, which it could be as simple as this. Because when I was talking about with Kill Jaden, is it going to be a final death? Are we definitely killing him? Because we're not killing him in the Twisted Nether. And then someone pointed out, yeah, but other places that are associated with the Twisted Nether, you can also permanently kill them there. And Argus is very much associated with it because it's the seat of the Burning Legion. And maybe Illidan's brought Argus to us so that then Azeroth now becomes somewhere associated with the Twisted Nether, which basically means if we kill a demon on Azeroth, then it's also permanently dead. Maybe that's it. Normal, so is it why LFR is a thing? LFR is still a thing because you can just queue up to it. Normal, you can queue up and be declined over and over again. LFR, you can't. The worst that can happen is you get kicked out for some reason, but that very rarely happens. So LFR is a thing specifically for the people who, at any time, within reason, on any day, can just go, I'm going to do LFR now, and that's it. Which is what I'm likely to be doing on Saturday, actually, with my warrior now. You asked me a question, did you? Do I see Illidan replacing Sargeras as the leader of Burning Legion? No. Even now, no. I don't think he's powerful enough. I know they're bigging him up, but he's not a Titan. So I don't think so. I mean, the demons, the thing is, it's not like the Scourge with the Lich King. There must always be a Lich King thing because there was a Scourge. The Burning Legion is Sargeras. Like, the demons existed before he banded them together. What happened? He created the Burning Legion by... Because his first job as Titan was to go around and capture demons and lock them up to stop them getting up to any naughtiness. And then when he decided to form his legion, he needed allies, so he went back to where he'd locked up the demons and said, look, if you work for me, right, I'm going to let you out. So that was the deal. They worked for him. So there were demons before him. There's nothing to stop there just being demons after him that are just disorganised and just cause general naughtiness in places. Except, of course, Illidan is supposed to sort of bring an end to them. He's not going to bring an end to them by becoming their boss. But I don't know how that works either. But I don't think the Argus reveal changes anything. But, I mean, at the end of the day, we'll find out soon enough. Let's have a look. Very interesting what the WoW team has to show us at BlizzCon. So am I. So am I. They have to talk about something substantial. And if it's not going to be the next expansion, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, then it has to be... Because you've got to think about the timing of it as well. Obviously, BlizzCon... See, Argus should be live in the game when BlizzCon arrives, but not the Argus raid, I would say. So I know the next expansion probably will be Old Gods. It's very, very likely. But I hope they do something new. Well, so do I. At the same time, they seem to have been a bit reluctant to that. And I think it's Pandaria that put them off. Because a lot of people didn't appreciate it. You think we're going to kill Sargeras when the Titan Soul Azeroth is away. When the Titan Soul Azeroth is awake, we're all buggered. You know. We live on it. We're all going to get farted out into space. That's not going to do us any good. I think... I've said it before. I think the Azeroth Awakening thing is a good end to World of Warcraft. And then they can lead in to another Warcraft game, hopefully an MMO, because I'm not keen on other ones now. I'd like it to be another MMO, where The Burning Legion is defeated. We're on another planet. We've evacuated it. And, you know, the Void Lords are our main baddie then. I think it would be boring to kill another avatar, I have to say. That would not be interesting. I think there would be an outcry. It is interesting, though, because they've got to give us a major bad guy. I have, ever since we found out that we're going to be kill Jaden, which was before Legion launched, then I have been thinking to myself, what's going to come on next? Because he is the major lieutenant. After Kill Jaden, Archimonde's gone. With Kill Jaden gone, there isn't anyone else up apart from Sargeras. I mean, I still don't think we're going to do Sargeras. But there isn't anyone else further up the chain. There's no one to, you know, it is all very, very strange. I don't know what to think anymore. You think the next expansion will be at the Queen, not Queen of Ashara, Queen Ashara, you mean? It's her name. People keep saying that, and they keep teasing us with Ashara. Like she made a little bit of an appearance in Legion, for example. They keep taunting us with her. I don't think she's as interesting an enemy as people keep making out, you know. She will be in at some point. I don't think, though, that they should make an entire expansion just out of her. Because I don't think she's consequential enough. So, yeah, I can see her being in. You know, maybe, as I say, because you have an Old Gods expansion, let's say. It's not obviously been announced. You need different themes in the raids. So having an Ashara-based raid, I can understand having an Ashara-based tier raid where we kill her. That's fine. But having a whole expansion just on her, yeah, Void Lords. Well, that's what I mean. Void Lords would be a natural thing after the Burning Legion to be our main enemy. But I would like to see that in another game. I would like to see, you know, that we finally defeat the Burning Legion. Azeroth, you know, is born at the end of World of Warcraft. And then we're going to another game. She may be the Xavius, or she may be somewhere. She may even be at the end of it. It might actually not, you know, be too bad to be at the end of it. It all depends on who. Because you've got to think the very last enemy has to be the most powerful. It hasn't. I'm not saying it has always been like that, but it should be, I think. Although, has it? It probably has, actually. Has it? I'm not sure. Because Mr. Pandaria is a bit funny, because Garrosh was the last boss of that expansion, but would you say he was bigger and badder than the Thunder King? I'm not so sure. But generally speaking, at the end of an expansion, it is the biggest, nastiest one that you take on. Demons have got nothing to do, well, there's nothing to do with the Burning Legion, of course they have. But demons were around before the Burning Legion. The Burning Legion is just Sargeras commanding the demons to do things, because he's bigger than they are and he can smash them in. They're just doing what he says. Because they get out of it what they want, which is to terrorise a load of worlds. And he's, you know, as I say, it used to be his job to go around beating up demons and throwing them in jail. And in return for following him, he doesn't beat them up and he doesn't throw them in jail. So it's a good deal. But the demons will still be there, we assume, unless, as I say, Blizzard, you know, throw another ace out the deck. But they don't they're not automatically removed just because we've beaten the Legion. Also, in terms of demons in the game, they'll not be removed, of course, because they never do. Nothing chronological ever happens like that. It's a bit like they've said, once we've killed Jaden, which we sort of have on some levels at least, you can argue it doesn't make any sense, like Blizzard said this themselves, to keep having invasions on the Broken Isles, especially when we've gone to Argus. At that point, the storyline has definitely been done on Azeroth. We have defeated the Legion invasion. It stops. But the invasions don't stop, and the demons are still on the Broken Isles, because, you know, it's still part of the game. So it's like when you're doing those invasions in like Stormheim or wherever, you're imagining that you're at a time before you've defeated Kill Jaden. And then when you're on Argus, it's a time after you've defeated Kill Jaden. So you keep going backwards and forwards in time. I suppose you can think about it that way. But my issue with people's theories about
finish off the Burning Legion, then move on to Void Lords. And people keep saying, oh, well, in the lore, they're a bigger threat, blah, blah, blah. Oh, right, okay. The average player doesn't know that. Void Lords have played almost no part in World of Warcraft's major storylines. So they'd be having to introduce what is for a lot of people a new enemy, even though it's not a new enemy. It is for a lot of people. And it's a bit of a risk, because if people don't take to it, then they've shot the load. Right, so what if 7.3 we're going to fight Sargeras, we're able to defeat him but not kill him? Well, we technically defeat him every time we scupper one of his plans. We've already defeated him by killing Jaden. Blizzard are going to end the game, work on a Warcraft... Well, it'll be a Warcraft 5. World of Warcraft 2, maybe. It wouldn't necessarily be an MMO. I would hope that it would. Wouldn't follow that it would. With a new engine. I would like that. But I don't... I'd be very surprised if they're actually doing that. In fact, I'm quite sure they're not. Like, they can keep projects secret, but they can't keep it secret that they're working on them. If they were working on a major project, something would be known, wouldn't it? Yeah, World of Warcraft 2. I would quite like that, but as I say, they can't... Something like that would take years to make. MMOs, big MMOs, take years. And there's no hint that they're working on one at the moment. Because as I say, I don't see how you could keep it secret, as I say, what you're doing. But if you've got a major project going on, like that Project Titan, which we still don't know all the details of, but we know that we knew it was going on. We knew that there was this big project going on, even though it was all secret. Because you can't hide that because of some of the people that would have to be working on it. Because you'd be wondering why they're working at Blizzard and you don't know what they're working on. Warcraft RPG to set up more story and continuing WoW off the bat would be good for everyone. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, my issue with World of Warcraft has been, my major gripe with it, has always been that it borrows too heavily off Warcraft 3 lore. Because, like, you had Warcraft 1, there wasn't much storyline to Warcraft 1, and most of the storyline that there was has been retconned since anyway. Then you had Warcraft 2, that's where they started to put more thought into the stories. Because obviously Warcraft, they were just making a game. They were a really small organisation, and they were just making a game. The game was quite good. Then Warcraft 2, they had more development time, I suppose, to be able to spend more time on the story, so they put more story into it. Then Warcraft 3 is when they really went to town with the storytelling. And no one thought to themselves, oh, in Warcraft 3, oh, we can't introduce these people like Illidan and Arthas, because no one knows who they are, because they weren't in Warcraft 2. No one thinks that. They just brought in new stories. Fine. Then in World of Warcraft, it's like, oh, no, we can't bring in new stories. People won't know what they're about. Let's have a look. What do I think of all old zones revamped in the next expansion? Again, I've sort of said this. Only revamped in terms of scaling. I don't think they would majorly revamp them anyway because of the time it would take to do it. And that time takes away from time for spending on other expansions. But I would just want to see scaling in there. Well, technically the Legion do have a presence in Azeroth because there are some zones where you have demons. But the whole point of them being largely contained on the Broken Isles is because that's where they're pouring in. That's their access point. And we've gone there to try and... We're like the Spartans at Thermopylae. We're there to sort of stop the Persians coming in. Hang on a minute, what's this? 930 item level. Is that what you get from the cache? I didn't actually know what item level it was going to be. Do you get a 930 item level item from the plus 15 weekly cache? That'll be good. Except I'll get a load of rubbish again. Although, at my item level, it's hard to imagine anything 930 being rubbish. 930, ooh. It seems a little higher than it... Does it seem higher than it needs to be? No, it's about what you'd expect, wouldn't it? Because it's like mythic. It's the equivalent item level of a mythic raiding item, isn't it? So, I suppose it's probably about what you'd expect, isn't it? Because that's what you're getting. I mean, you're getting from the weekly. It's the same in Nighthold. You got an item that was roughly the same item level as mythic raiding stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure I will be getting stuff that either blocks off where I want to use a legendary or tier. But at the same time, I might get lucky. Maybe I'll get a 955 trinket that I want. If it's high enough item level, even with mastery, see, mastery is not bad for Ret. It's just not as good as the others. But if it was if it was a 930 item level item, unless it stops me having a tier set bonus or a legendary I want to use, I can't think that I won't use it no matter what the stats on it are, because that would be higher. Well, I suppose it depends on the. I've got some items that are decent item level actually. I suppose it depends, but I'd have some hopes that a 930 item. I'd be disappointed if it turned into a Chaos Crystal, put it that way. What do I think of Titan Forging? I think it's an absolute nightmare for players who need it, but Blizzard see it as solving their problem. What they wanted from Titan Forging is they wanted people to feel that any content in the game had a chance of giving them an upgrade. And it's done that. You know, you still get people doing Emerald Nightmare. And the reason they do that is because there is a chance that they could get a Titan Forged Bloodthirsty Instinct or something like that. And that would be good. And, you know, when Tomb of Sargeras is in full swing, people will still carry on doing like Trial of Valor and Nighthold and stuff. So it does what Blizzard want it to do, even though it is annoying for serious players. Because it creates this huge element of luck. Because you think about it this way, like at the moment, I'm wearing some tier 19, some tier 20 with set bonuses. That's natural when a new tier has just opened up. You expect to do that. But some people will be able to carry that on if they, for example, get really high Titan Forged tier 19 pieces. They would be able to do that throughout Tomb of Sargeras. And if you don't, then you won't. Same with your trinkets. There'll be some trinkets that if you get them at high item level, it would be amazing. But if you don't get them at high item level, will not. So it's not a good system for serious players. But as I say, that's not what it, you know, it's there to convince us to do old content, or what we would call old content. Would seem logic that Blizzard is going to work in 2 years on a new World of Warcraft with a new engine. At some point, they'd probably have to start a new one, as I say, because it takes several years to make a new game. But whether they'd even want to keep it secret, I don't know. I suppose there's pros and cons to that. But we could certainly not be aware that they're working on a big project. They can't keep the fact they're working on something secret. But the possibility to connect EU realms together. They could do that now. They could easily connect all the EU realms together, all the North American Oceanic realms together, blah, blah, blah. They could do that now. They don't need to make a new game for that. They don't want to because they get money for transfers. That's all there is to it. It's not a developer decision. The developers could easily say there's massive... They would get more people playing the game if all the realms were properly connected, because then you don't have at the moment you have a situation where someone's guild collapsed or doesn't do very well and they want to, you know, whatever, and they realise that they can't do the content they want to do at the level they want to do it on their realm. So the option is to go elsewhere. Well, some people just decide either it's not worth the money or they feel they don't have the money to do that, especially if they've got a lot of alts. And those people then stop playing the game. Now, that wouldn't happen if you just connected all the realms. But Blizzard obviously feel that they get more money from realm transfers than they do from people quitting the game who would ordinarily not. Well, I don't like the legendary system either. Not at all. If I've said before, if they must insist on having lots of legendaries, in other words, shall I say, with lots of different types of ability, I think they should just get rid of like normal trinkets. I should think this. We should just legendaries and trinkets should just merge as a concept. So you know, you have legendary trinkets, and they just go in your 2 trinket slots. I mean, you wear 2 as it is at the moment, and that's it, and that's how it works. And leave the other item slots alone. And then it also stops them having to come up with stupid bloody trinket ideas as well. Doing an upper Kara plus 12, pushing to plus 15. Oh, yeah. Legendary glyphs. We've got enough legendary things. Too many legendary things. Legendaries used to be... It's quite weird, isn't it, how... Like, at the start in the game, even an epic was like something to behold. And now we've got used to just... You know, you get to level cap and you expect to be in full epics within a few days. So epics are now like... Not even blue... I mean, you didn't even get blue gear that quickly in vanilla. So epics are now more commonplace than blue items in vanilla. They're on the same level as greens almost. And greens are only there to be disenchanted. It's quite funny because at some point during Legion, I can't remember what it was, but I suddenly noticed that I was getting BOE greens with sockets in them. And sometimes Warforged as well. And it's like, what's this about? And but there's no point to it because no one wears them. And like you get these BOE green relics, but for the level you have to be to use them, they're really low item level. They're pointless. So they're just there for enchanters to nuke into dust. It's why I was saying that yesterday, I think it was, that out of the enchanting materials, it's the blue crystals that are the most sought after, because you get plenty of chaos crystals just nuking the epics, which you're awash with. You get plenty of dust from nuking the BOE greens that you get from just out doing world quests and things. But the only way to get the blue crystals, I always forget the names of them, don't care, is to get blue items to disenchant them. But you know, dungeons, but you don't do dungeons very often. And even the dungeons now, heroic dungeons, give epic gear, so that's no use. Time walking dungeons is your best source of them. So you just have to use, I'll use bloods or get them on the auction house. So there's a huge disjoint with it because it's supposed to be like greens are supposed to be your more common gear, and then blue's a bit rare, and then epic's supposed to be quite rare, and that's gone out the window a long time ago. No, it's not. Epic is certainly not a suitable name anymore. Everything's just too... I don't like to go too much onto the everything's given to you on a plate thing, because it's not really. You still have to do stuff, but and it's not an easy thing to sort out as well. But we're just too quickly into epic gear. I mean, when you're in full epic gear before the raid of an expansion is even opened, there's got to be something wrong with that. Epics should come exclusively, I think, from raid content. I know having LFR mucks it up a bit, but maybe LFR should just give blue items. Maybe they should have just had it so that, sorry for my chair squeaking, the LFR gives blue items. Even if it was still blue equivalents of the gear that we're getting as epic from the organised raids. Even though I actually thought they did it right in WoD, where you didn't get this, you had different loot tables for LFR and other forms of raiding. I thought that was better. Crafting is the best source overall of what? For the blue crystals, oh, what you mean making stuff and disenchanting it? I don't know. I don't know what's more cost effective. I don't really pay much attention. Because I don't even have my enchanting at like... Is it 800? 800? Because I haven't... You don't enchant stuff very often. And I don't make enchants to sell. Maybe I should do that a bit more often. I don't know. So, but yeah, I mean, what do we enchant? We enchant rings, but I very rarely get an upgraded ring. We enchant necks, again, same thing. And we enchant cloaks. Well, I have a legendary cloak, which I use most of the time. Even though I haven't been using it the last couple of days. So, really like my reaction about the AMA when the developer said, tell us what we are missing about the class fantasy. Yes, well. I mean, it is a subjective thing, but it's an absolute nonsense. But the class fantasy thing came in purely and simply as a debate ender. You know, rather than them having to argue on... Like, they even said something ridiculous like, we don't care if something isn't balanced. We care... They actually said these words. They care more about the class fantasy than they do balance. But that's just a way of basically saying, if we can't balance your stuff, that's our plan all along. Have I tested Sephir's Secret on Demonic Inquisition? No, I will never try and use Sephir's Secret on any raid boss, because there are other people who will be doing the exact same thing, and you cannot reliably use it. And you can't do anything else to proc it. You can't use any crowd control as far as I know. So you are reliant on just trying to get it from interrupts. Which isn't going to happen because someone else will get there first. Yes, I noticed that we haven't had any buffs. I still can't believe that they'd leave it as it is. But it may just be that we have to wait a bit. But if they haven't done anything to us, let's say in a week's time, then I am going to wonder what they're talking about. Unless there's a sudden reversal of the performances so far being shown on logs. Because I noticed Blizzard getting in early on that AMA by saying, oh, well, you can't really look at logs. You get lots of misleading things. We know, there's plenty of us who understand data analysis, and we know not to read too much into it. And we know what assumptions we're making when we do read these things. And that's it's an absolute nonsense that you can't tell things from logs. They will only have the same sort of thing themselves. It's the same data. They have more of it because they, obviously with logs, all we have access to are the people who are posting those logs, which is not everyone. In theory, Blizzard could be collecting all of that data. But I still think logs are representative. Maybe not in the first week of Mythic, because the top guilds will not be publicising their logs. But that doesn't necessarily affect me anyway. That potentially would affect the people in the very top percentiles. But yeah, I thought I am a little bit disappointed to their attitude towards balancing, which is the most difficult part of doing any sort of multiplayer game, but also the most important part. And the fact that they seem to be suggesting it's not actually as important as we would think it is disappointing. Well, that is another problem, isn't it? Yeah, if you've got people dying. But that's what creates this huge injustice, so to speak, with the invariance. Because there's a big difference between... First of all, let's say you're going to have 5 people down a fight. There's a big difference between them all dying all at once, when you just get one Retribution proc that lasts you 20 seconds, that's your lot, and dying spread throughout the fight, because you're going to get 5 lots of it. There's also a difference between them doing it during Crusade, especially once you've already built up your stacks. So the time at which people die as well. And it has a big effect. Blizzard tried talking down the effect of this thing. It's a huge effect. An extra 20% damage on top of when you've already got loads of extra damage going on as well. Immensely powerful ability. And then the other Ret in my guild, for example, he has a decent memento of Angerboda as well. So it's double trouble. So when someone dies, that procs, so it gets a combat stat straight away. And he gets a Retribution buff, which makes it even stronger. He absolutely cleans up when people die. It's ridiculous what we get. So they should remove it completely. If they want to give us the like damage reduction part to it, I'm fine with that. Can go with that. Yeah, well, that's the thing. If you look at top parsers for Rets, you will always see high uptime on Retribution. Always. Like my best log, I got like a, not a world first, a Western first. There was a Chinese fellow who got higher than me. A long time ago, it's an Emerald Nightmare now. And it was because I had quite high uptime on Retribution. And when I had Crusade up. That was all there was to it. I didn't even have the Bis Legendaries. But I had high uptime on Retribution. Well, you say paying guildmates to kill themselves at a certain point of a fight. There's some people will arrange for the deaths of someone. You know? If you know you're not going to wipe, if it's going to be like farm content, you could have a shaman die in Ankh and something like that. Especially if it's a healing one who's not needed at a particular time. When you've got Crusade, just let them know. Just say, right, I've got full stacks now, you can kill yourself. And there's people that do that. I mean, there's always ways to game ranks if you're after ranks. It's very artificial as it is. But yeah, with something like this, it's beyond ridiculous. And it works against you sometimes as well, because I remember, this is actually quite funny, because in my previous guild, for example, I wasn't in on the scenario. I actually then changed guilds, went to another guild, but which is one I'm in now, sort of. But like, I did some pulls on it because I'd done the previous boss, which was Il'gynoth. So we did like an hour's worth of pulls on it, or half an hour, something like that, at the end of the night. And, you know, people were basically saying, oh yeah, well his damage is so high because of Retribution, we're all down, we're all wiping. So sometimes they will think that your damage would be like negligible without it as well. So that doesn't help. See you later, Pinky. But anyway, that's enough on Rets. Just but I think that the class fantasy thing is a poor excuse. Game mechanics should come first. You have to make it work. It's easy. If you design a system, it's really easy to come up with the fantasy for it. I could swap around any two classes easily. You know, I could, let's say I swapped the abilities that warriors and rogues had. I could easily just swap around the way they work and change the names of their resources and spells to make it fit that particular class. You know, making mechanics fit fantasy is simple. It just requires a little bit of imagination. It certainly shouldn't work the other way around. Maybe their actual class fantasy for paladins is, oh, well, these are holy, aren't they? So that means they don't like hurting people. So they should do low damage. But anyway. I'll tell you actually something you might be able to answer I've not seen, because someone told me, and because I hadn't done Tomb of Sargeras on PTR, I don't know, that we're supposed to see Gul'dan's body in there, presumably without its head. But I didn't come across that. I didn't see it. Did anyone see it and know where it is? Could it be that we're going to see a small bit of Argus in 7.3 and more in new expansion? You can never say never, but I don't think it's a lead in... anything's possible, isn't it? It's possible, shall we say. It is possible, yes, that maybe we're going to just go and do a bit of landing on Argus, and then the next expansion would also... Because it's now here, isn't it? It's here. It's still going to... We're not going to blow it up, are we? That would create even more problems with physics. Bombarding us with shrapnel from Argus. So you never know. Where is it then? The Gul'dan. Warcraft 2, really. I know the story's told in Warcraft 3, but he dies in Warcraft 2. Furthest... Hang on. Turn right from the Goroth room. The Goroth room's the first room. Furthest door on the left. I'll have to have a quick sneaky look. There are Gul'dan burn marks on the walls, like outlines that you can click and turn into Gul'dan with a new action bar. Oh my god. I hope that's trolling. Because if that's true, there's someone in our guild who will make use of that. I'll have to have a little look. I'm not watching an entire stream just to find it. I'll have a little wander then. If it's near the first boss, then I'll probably come across it. That sounds horrendous. It was bad enough in Emerald Nightmare when people pick up the crystals that turn you hostile without this new way of causing trouble. In the area where you need to jump down where the Murlocs swim. What you mean? Hang on a minute. This is not making sense now. Someone said turn right from the Goroth room. That would be left. That would be the hole where Goroth came out of. Oh, you're all saying different things. I'll just, if it's near the beginning, I'll just wander around. The mark, I'm not bothered about the marks, it's the body that I'd be interested in. I don't really want to draw attention to the marks because there's a certain warrior in our guild, as I say, that would abuse them. Body is right, I've got right. I shall look there then. After this, I'll go into the empty instance and have a... Oh, hang on a minute. It won't be empty, will it, on Heroic? You don't... Oh, no. You don't go into an empty instance on Heroic, do you? Because you can do it again. Disappointing. Oh, I'll have to wait till tomorrow then. When everyone's doing the loot after the first boss, I'll just pretend to get lost. Video of highlights. I don't really want to show the highlights because mostly it's me falling down holes. But I will be doing a quick review, hopefully tonight. Now that I've done it all, I feel that I can do a review at least of normal and heroic. Yeah, I know, it's one of those things, isn't it? You should always think to yourself, how could people abuse this? But they don't always do that, do they? But I mean, I was trying to keep a little bit of an eye out when we were doing it, but obviously we were also trying to move from boss to boss fairly efficiently. I was hoping I would just come across it, but I suppose it's hidden somewhere. No, well, you would hope in LFR that the mark won't be there. Or that they'll learn their lesson and make sure it doesn't appear there unless it's a guild group. Because they've got the facility to tell, you know, you have guild groups like for... Oh, he's got a YouTube. Okay, well that might be easier then if there's a specific YouTube video for it. I would remove it in LFR, wouldn't you? It is quite a good raid, yeah. I quite like the Tomb of Sargeras raid so far, anyway. I am disappointed if... Obviously, just because some guilds can kill 4 bosses really quickly doesn't mean to say we will. Far from it. But... and I know people said in Nighthold, you know, people killed 3 easily in the first week. But there were more bosses. Okay, by 1, but there were still more bosses than in Nighthold. And 2, I didn't think that was very good either. You know, because, I mean, the way it looks, you might actually, you know, because we're going to do our farming in Heroic on Wednesday. Then we're going to do Mythic stuff on Thursday. Now, if on Thursday we kill 3 bosses and do some practice on a 4th, and then on the Monday even kill that 4th, I'm not saying we will, then that, in a way, will be disappointing. Obviously, it'd be good because, you know, we want to kill bosses, but it implies that at some point you're going to come to a completely brick wall. And it's always better, I think, if it's a general progression curve, rather than kill a few bosses really quickly and then hit a brick wall. Yes, Mythic doesn't release until... We get our resets on Wednesday in the EU. So the US guilds get a day to get some world firsts on bosses no one cares about before Method get in on the case. And Exorcist at the moment, I suppose, as well. Have we talked about the state of red? We're not going to talk a little bit, yeah. We don't talk much about one specific spec on this one, because this is the general World of Warcraft stuff. I will be doing a Retribution Q&A again, a live one, at some point in July. I don't know exactly when. I'm trying to make sure it doesn't coincide with other things. Potentially in a couple of weeks. Right. Okay. No one's killed 4 yet. Well, that's encouraging at least. Yeah, I was watching Big Dumb Guild's stream earlier on 3. All right, well, maybe 4 is the brick wall then, because they got through the first 3 really quickly. Maybe the 4th boss isn't the 4th one to tackle. I don't know. How is it fair for the world first race? Technically, it's not, but it hasn't been an issue, I suppose, because EU ones tend to get it first anyway. You would love to see an extra boss in heroic mode. People would complain. And Kata, hang on, what? An extra boss in heroic mode. What did they do in Kata? I didn't really play a lot of Cataclysm. I was taking a break at the time because I was so annoyed with like the second coming of Nax. At the same time, I don't know, US players don't suck. It's just they obviously don't have hardcore guilds. I mean, there's not many in the EU. You know, at the moment, it's going to be a world first race of 2 guilds. They just happen to be in Europe. Oh, Sinestra, was it? I only vaguely remember that because I didn't progress on that. I was, as I say, I took a break. After the first tier in Wrath, I was so annoyed with it, I just left the game. And then eventually came back for Dragon Cell. So anything in between, I only have vague understanding of and no real memories. Well, apart from when I did come back technically for ICC just to play it casually, though. Just very casually. General question. Your raid group suffer from huge lag and the Desolate Host. I know ours didn't, so you shouldn't. If you're getting a 2 or 3 second delay, we did get that on Kill Jaden yesterday. I suppose one thing that's doing it is the fact that there's loads and loads of people raiding today in North America. But when we got it on Kill Jaden yesterday, the only thing that sorted it was going outside and reforming the raid. But for Kill Jaden, that's one thing, because there's only a little bit of trash for it. For Desolate Host, I don't know how much trash would respawn for that. And it wouldn't be guaranteed to fix it anyway. Yeah, the thing is, I don't think they'd get away with Mythic-only bosses anymore. You're pushing it with Mythic-only phases. Throne of Thunder did indeed have an extra boss, yeah, Arden. Yeah. But I just get the feeling that these days, in the... I think people would kick off. Or at least I think Blizzard feel that they would kick off. Like as I say, you get Mythic-only phases, and I think that's them pushing it. Okay, yeah. I mean, all I can say is I mean, I did the boss a few times last week on different modes, and, you know, heroic and normal twice, and didn't get any lag on it. So I don't know. It might be usual thing, although Fat Boss said it might not be an add-on, because I don't think they run many add-ons when they're PTR testing. But that is the usual thing. Just it could be an add-on issue, especially if you've got an old. You always have to check. Like when a new tier has come out, it's really, really important that you keep updating your add-ons, because they change all the time. Like if you have not updated add-ons today, guaranteed there is some out of date, because I've had to update 5 already. I mean, I've got the Twitch app, so I can see when they're there. The only one I have to manually check up on is ElvUI. In fact, now Details has got another update I can just see. I've already updated that once today. So you get regular updates of add-ons at this time. You should also, if any add-ons haven't had an update because the author hasn't updated them for the new patch, think to yourself, do you use it? If you find that you don't use it, it's always a good idea every now and then to review your add-ons. And if you find that there's one you don't use, just get rid of it as well. Because that's a common source of input lag. And it wouldn't necessarily be unusual for the entire raid to experience it if you all have similar add-ons. But then, like as I say, lag is expected on, you know, at the start of a new tier, especially on the first day of new content coming out, which is what's happening now, because you've got all the people going in, whether it's heroic, normal, or mythic, and LFR, I suppose, as well. 4 times the fun. Yes, you should. Oh, yes, you should certainly be updated. There have been updates today on a number of which add-ons have updated today. Details, bigwigs, pawn at least. They've all shown as having updated very recently, and I think a couple of them twice. I mean, there might be. It could be, I suppose, related to the 2 phases that you're in with the raid split and Desolate Host. All I know is that, as I say, we didn't get that. But if you're having that particular problem on that particular boss and you're still having it now, that's not a good sign. You got the belt, cloak, and chest today. You mean you got 3 legendaries today? Or are you talking about tier? No, belt isn't tier. I do. Right. I use ElvUI, if you're asking me. Oh, excuse me, itchy eye. Yeah, all Simcraft does is basically like say what you're wearing and what's in your bags. It's just a text thing that it produces, so there's no reason for that to need it. That's not going to do anything in game. That's not going to cause any issues with anything you're doing, because it just, as I say, it just says what you're wearing and what's in your bags. It doesn't need to continually like be scanning or anything like that. Oh, you've got all 3, right? Well, yeah, I mean, I'll be upgrading my cloak tomorrow, and then I'll have 4 legendaries at 970. Which is all the ones I intend to use for raiding, so that's fine. There are another few that I would like to upgrade for other purposes. Yeah. Do I remember if the ElvUI raid frames would grey out the players in the opposite realm during the Desolate Host? Yes, they do. Or they did anyway, when I did it last reset. Or what is for me now this reset still, because it hasn't finished. But that's how you can tell if everyone's on the right side or not. Because you'd sort of say to people in the spirit realm, go and transfer now, and then you can have a look at your raid frames and see who is in the right place and who's not. No, the Simcraft looking at the items in your bag isn't there to give you the best combinations. It's there in case you want to compare things that are in your bags with your own gear easily, because it's giving you the thing there, so you don't have to look up stuff on Wowhead, is, I think, the idea for that. The other thing is, I also, because it's happened quite recently, Simulation Craft didn't used to do that, I also strongly suspect it's more with raid bots in mind, because raid bots does allow you to compare a few things from your bag. Do you need to, it's always an idea to always update add-ons. Well, I say that, no. Well, LVUI definitely, always keep that up to date. There are some add-ons, admittedly, you don't always want to keep, because sometimes, like, an update can break things. So if something's working, leave it. But you don't want to leave them too out of date, because that causes lag issues. I mean, I'm being updating mine. I mean, especially things like boss mods, you want to update, because they will be being refined. And you want to make sure they're as accurate as possible. I mean, in terms of the add-ons you'll sort of want for raiding, you want boss mods. Exhaustive raid tools is always good. Angry assignments, but again, that just posts like text things. You don't need damage meters. You really don't need those. Obviously, people take them anyway. Weak auras, so that you can download suitable weak auras that are useful for the encounters, which we've downloaded some today that we're going to try out tomorrow. We had one set for this week, which was sort of okay. But we've got another set to try out for next week. Oh dear. But there is a chance that the 7.3 PTR patch might actually come out just in time for me to spend plenty of time on it. Because I have now got, what, 2.5 weeks left at work before I get 6 weeks off. You would expect timers to be a little off at the start of a tier, because they will have done them based on PTR testing. But you've got to remember, no one will have tested all of every boss on the PTR, because they can't. So they will need refining. That's why it's important to keep updating it. And you may find more than one update a day, so just keep it updated. That's normal for the timers to be off to begin with. Do I think Avatar is intended to have a random mechanic priority? What do you mean random? Which mechanic do you think is random? Well, I mean, what we chorus will ultimately do is tell you when you've got a thing on you. I teach general science. I teach all of them. What do you mean trying to decide on physics or maths? They go hand in hand. He does follow a pattern, but you've got to bear in mind, not everything is time-based. So, for example, there's energy as he gets. Obviously, what phases him is getting more energy, and you can reduce the amount of energy he gets by blocking off the beams with the Maiden thing, the Titan construct. But in general, I think it would be, if you do it in the same way, you get roughly the same thing. I don't know of any. Sometimes you can. Sometimes there are mechanics that can happen within windows rather than at the exact same time. But I'm not sure. I'd have to check again. I'm not sure it seemed like that to me. I mean, bigwigs are still useful because the timers for heroics and normal will now be good. You would think they will now work. So what they'll be working on now is getting the mythic stuff, which again no one has completed yet. So they will also need refining. Daggers, fires, and soaks came out in different orders. It might be the case then. But it seemed to me that when we did them and on the different runs, the things did, or on different pulls even, because we didn't kill it first time, that it seemed to follow similar patterns, as far as I could tell. There were similar combinations of events happening at roughly the same time. Who can soak the big meteor and kill Jaden? Anyone with an immunity. So a Paladin can bubble it. I'm pretty sure I saw on a stream, actually, a Paladin do it with Bop. I'm not sure that makes sense to me. But you can certainly bubble it. Hunters can do it with like Turtle, mages with Ice Block, demon hunters with their immunity, rogues with Cloak. Loads of people can. Tanks can do it at a push. You wouldn't normally expect tanks to. It depends on what you've got in your group. We had loads. I didn't have to soak one at all because we had so many people going, oh, I'm going to soak the next big one. We had loads of people who could do it. Yeah, I thought that. Because the dot you get is fire damage, and it's the same. The name of the ability is still the same. So I thought it was weird when I saw someone bop it, but I know on a stream I did see someone bop it. We've run out of gnomes now. We don't. Well, actually, I say that. One of our warriors did post a picture of himself as a gnome on Discord today. I haven't checked. I am a little concerned. But certainly last night we had no gnomes to throw onto it. Yes, well, anyone can do it if there's a battle res available. I think we're talking about soaking it without killing yourself. I mean, obviously, as a last resort, yeah, if you're in a situation where you have to soak it and you haven't got an immunity, but no one else is going to soak it, then okay, you just kill yourself. But that shouldn't happen. Yeah, but the dot's fire damage. I know, yeah, as I say, I saw someone using bot, so I know bot works. It just seemed strange to me that the dot is fire damage. When it's called, I'd be okay with it if they were called different things. If the impact had a different spell name to the dots you got, but it's not, it's the same. I mean, presumably they've got different spell IDs, otherwise it really, because you can't have the same spell ID for two different types of damage. But the actual name of the ability in the journal is the same. Which is Armageddon Rain. But yeah, so there's, in other words, the short answer to that question is virtually anyone can do it. If you've got an immunity. And I suppose the advantage of bop is you can put it on someone else. So if you don't feel like soaking it, and someone else does, but they ain't got immunity, you can just put your bop on them. So use the same mage. How lazy is that? That's a bit like on, what was it in WoD, the ogre boss, the butcher. I used to have to do that, bopping a mage at a particular point. They made me bop the gnome mage as well. I suppose there is that. The mage would probably be quite pleased about it because they can still DPS through bop where they can't through their own ice block. I guess there is that argument, yes. What's my cooldown on bop now? I've forgotten. Because it's... How many traits have we got? We've got 4 traits by default. I can't remember how much of a reduction each one gives. Be just under 4 minutes now, won't it? How many big meteors were there in the time we killed it? I can't remember. Yeah, but technically by bopping a gnome, you're also saving them. It's huge, huge grey area. You're not really using them. Also, they benefit. 3 minutes is it down to now? I don't even notice because I don't use it. Or hardly ever use it, I should say. It's like, because you're not using the gnome, they're using you. Because the gnome, if they had to soak it with their ice block, would not be able to do any damage while they're ice blocking. Whereas they can with bop on. So I think you've been done there. If it weren't so self-destructive, I would even be encouraged, if it was me, to go, oh, sorry, didn't you get the bop? Oh, I must have picked the wrong button. But unfortunately, the whole raid... Well, actually, no, they don't really, do they? No, because it's still soaked. That would be fine. They might panic and run out at the last second if they don't get their bop. Well, anyone can get to them easily enough. The platform's really short. It's easy to get to any of the fire things if it needs soaking. But, I mean, as I say, I was running around yesterday. I couldn't believe it because I was running around trying to soak things and hardly soaked anything. And on the actual kill itself, soaked nothing. And I ran out, apart from the first one, but even then I had a look around. On the first one, I've got Crusade going. I'm just about to kill some ads. So I'm disinclined to soak at that point, but I do still look around because I will if I have to. But every time after that, I am looking around to try and soak something. But people were just rushing out to them and trying to get them. So there's nothing for me to get. Which was in stark contrast to Trilliax in Nighthold. You didn't get the same behaviour of people going out to soak cakes on Trilliax. I really don't know what the difference is. How come you can say gnomes? That's supposed to be one of my banned words. What the hell? It's putting an asterisk on it. That shouldn't be able to sort it. What? I'm going to have to refine my banned words. Oh my god. That's... Oh. Right, I shall have to try and fix that later. There must be a way of just banning any sort of sequence of... See, Jack, that would just be cheating. Really? No, you wouldn't race swap to gnome. And gnomes cannot be paladins. Even Blizzard recognise limits. They have boundaries. I mean, they keep expanding those boundaries, but they still have them. It wouldn't be a big arse spring. It would be a really small one, right? They diminish things. You give them nice things, they diminish it. I have seen gnomes with magnificent weapons. They don't look magnificent on a gnome. Like I said, the saddest sight I ever saw was during TBC in the Wrath beta. I saw a gnome with the twin blades of Azinoth. They did not look impressive. It was an extremely sad sight. Yeah, I saw that picture. I was hoping that it was just like he'd used a toy or something that had changed his race. So he's actually changed to gnome, has he? Idiot. It is not a big Ashbringer on a gnome. I have already told the story many times. In fact, I've specifically created a playlist on my channel about gnomes where I have all the information on them. This is why Paladins are in such bad state at the moment. Instead of hassling Blizzard to do something about it, you're all too busy turning yourself into like inferior races. No, I should hope the Gul'dan marks don't work in LFR. It's ridiculous enough they work anywhere. As someone said before, the idea of them is is not good at all. I don't know what they were thinking. But in LFR, they should definitely not work, because nothing would get done. I mean, it did. I mean, we were all taking the piss out of the gnomes over the monks. Actually, some of them are gnomes over the weekend for absolutely firebombing the AMA with question after question after question. But it didn't seem to do them any harm, did it? They got their buffs yesterday, or announced yesterday for today, I suppose. And there was us trying to be all mature, going, yes, well, they'll definitely bring it. I don't think Blessing of Wisdom is all it's cracked up to be. People make too big a thing out of it. Like, there's no one fighting over it in our raid. Well, that's because dwarfs have no knees. Or, well, they only have knees when they're dancing. It's actually quite funny. But when they're walking, they don't appear to have knees in any sort of functional state. And yet they have, the male dwarfs have a dance that actually sort of suggests they do have knees. I don't know. Yeah, mine don't. I don't get anyone complaining. Well, it's the same thing with me. I only have one ask for it. So the only complaint I get is when I don't... Like on Desolate Host, I don't put it on them. Because I noticed that when I change phase, then it drops off and then I lose my strength buff. So on Desolate Host, I put both Greater Blessings on myself so that I retain my strength bonus. But on the other fights, I tend to put, like, on one particular healer, who's the only one who ever asks for it. If it's only one person asking for it, that's not people fighting over it, is it? And then no one notices. Like, it's not exactly like an innovate or something. I still think we should have kept like a suitable aura, because they could almost argue. Well, by default, I tend to put it on a tank, yeah. Unless there's someone who is known for taking like damage, like if someone's like I keep saying like rogue soaking in on Gul'dan, so then I would put it on a rogue, but we'll go to Argus in like 2 months from now. I think it's more like 3. But, I mean, it's one of these... I mean, it'll come out when it's ready. I would say possibly more like 3 months. If it's anything like the gap between Nighthold coming out and us going to the Broken Shore, I think that was 3 months. So that could be the same sort of thing there. So what would that leave us at? We're on the end of June now. So end of September-ish. Which would be not... So would not have been there long by the time BlizzCon comes around, possibly. That's assuming it's roughly the same period of time. Of course, you know, it could be at any time. But they have said that they want tiers to last 4 or 5 months. So if Tomb of Sargeras lasts 4 or 5 months... Then if we go to Argus in 3 months, then that leaves about 2 months to do whatever storyline they want us to do before we open up the next raid. I don't want to go back to being a buffing class because that was annoying. Unless we buff by doing interesting actions, not just clicking on players and going 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. There is no BIS set for Ret. It is whatever it says for you, and it'll be different for different fights. The chest, I was having a go at the chest in dungeons today. It's very nice in dungeons. It'll also be suitable on AoE fights, but I wouldn't use it on all fights unless you've if you've got access to better things. So it'll be different things, like belt and cloak, go, but you have to sim yourself. It's all different. Like, for example, if we had, let's say we had an ability that had a reasonably long cooldown, like, say, Wake of Ashes. If instead of debuffing the enemy, that buffed people nearby, a bit like Feral Druids and Enhancement Shamans, but in a more controlled way, that would be good, and that would fit the class fantasy as well. I'm not saying the Wake of Ashes doesn't fit class fantasy, by the way, but do I have a guide on how to sim your character? Yes, I do. And I have a playlist called Raidcraft. Anything more recent will be in my new videos. It's always worth checking through my playlist for stuff. Although I have quite a lot of playlists. But they've got titles. You can sort of see which ones are more likely to have what you want in them. Yeah, I mean, short-term buffs would be suitable. Because I say, they almost could argue that those sort of things are for healers now, because they've taken it off a lot of people. But warriors, DPS warriors still get a defensive AoE ability, like a raid-wide ability. So if one class can have it, why not the class that actually is more associated with those sort of things? So they can't pull class fancy on that one. In fact, if anything, we should have that. They should have our Retribution. They can have, because that fits the warrior class fantasy more. And we'll have their commanding... No, what's it called? Is it commanding shout? Can't remember. Havoc has darkness. Yeah, I mean, that's... it's not as good, is it? It's a... I mean, you know if you stack the whole raid into it, it's going to do some good. But it's a bit more RNG, that. Commanding shout, yeah. So we should have that. They can call it like whatever, and then they can have our Retribution nonsense. Have that factored into their overall DPS, and then get them nerfed into the ground. Although I should be going back onto my warrior. On Saturday afternoon again. I'll do some streaming on that. I'll probably do some LFR and my newly dinged warrior. Well, Spirit Link Totem is just pretty good in general, but yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, that's what you generally pop if you've got a massive amount of damage coming in. Those sort of abilities, when you can stack everyone, are pretty good. Stop saying bard. We're not going to be bards. But we could easily have a range spec for us, at least, for Paladins. We could have Shockadin. That would be better. They could do that. But there are range classes they could do. Like, as I say, the Necromancer is probably the most obvious one. We decided. We talked about this the other week, didn't we? Maybe last week or the week before. And the Necromancer, I think, was the one we decided was probably most likely because they were in Warcraft. You know, they were a thing. I know they've sort of probably evolved. Warlocks will probably say, well, that was just early Warlocks. But they were a thing, and they've got them now, or they're bringing them out in Diablo. So, you know, Blizzard have just designed a Necromancer class for another game. And they're not afraid to move things from Diablo to World of Warcraft. So we may get Necromancers as a future range spec. We didn't really have Shockadin. It just became, you know, it was never feasible. But I mean a proper, actual ranged DPS spec for Paladins. Yeah, well, I used to quite like having Devotion Aura. Until, you know, they got rid of that for WoD. Thank you very much. No, it's not. No, Bard's bad. They don't fit. I didn't. They could easily fit them in. I don't see why. I know previous ones have tended to fit the theme of the expansion, but I don't see why they should have to. But if they wanted to, they easily could. I'm not sure we'd have that much use for salvation these days. The only thing I can think of was when the warriors in the early part of Nighthold were popping Draft of Souls on the pull, and then Bop works just as well for that. I remember in Vanilla, actually, I mean, it presumably was the case for a couple of expansions, with, was it Trolls who used to get, because like most races used to get a bonus with using some particular weapon, and with Trolls their bonus was for using like throwing weapons, so you could get throwing axes and stuff like that, and they got a bonus on that, which is that. It's pretty useless, I think. No, if you want to play a bard running around with a guitar, you play Lord of the Rings Online. Or, you know, we don't do, no. Or, obviously, it's some sort of Dungeons and Dragons type game. We don't need bards in World of Warcraft. If they want to make... Bart Simpson, what? What? Double blade. We've got those. They're called, like, they're the glaives that demon hunters use. For a ret. We need a double blade for. Bloody big hammer's what we want. That's what's required. Which is why, as I say, I've not used my any of my Ashbringer skins for quite a while now. I've gone back to using my Marshal's hammer, Grand Marshal's hammer, whatever it's called. It would have been nice. Yeah, the thing is with Demon Hunters, they easily could have made a range spec for it. But I strongly suspect the reason they didn't is because they just knew that everyone would want to... They want to be Illidan. It comes as no surprise that they come out with some stats on this, didn't they? Earlier in Legion, I forget what it was. But it told you that the percentage of players playing a Demon Hunter that had a name that was some theme on Illidan. Like Killidan or something. And it was a ridiculously high percentage. So they knew this. They knew that the people who played Demon Hunters just wanted to be Illidan. No, I haven't killed it with the... I should have done, I suppose. At some point, I mean, I'm going to kill Jaden loads of times. I'm in no hurry. But yeah, if I remember to, then I will change it for that. And then change it back again. There's plenty of stuff I haven't done. I haven't done 10 rated battleground wins with it yet. I haven't done all the dungeons. I haven't done anything apart from the actual challenge mode to get additional skins. I think they can make, and I said this before, I see no reason not to be able to make a ranged class that uses a bow that is not a hunter. Obviously, you have to make it work differently. I'm not, you know, and obviously because we've had hunters for so long as being the only ones that can use a bow, it would require some care in making it clearly different. But I think they could do it.
Okay. I mean, I'm not that bothered about the skins. The only reason I'm going to get them at all, I haven't even done balance of power yet. You know, at some point, as I say, I will do it just for completeness because, as I say, as soon as Legion's over, we're not going to be able to get the skins anymore. So if in a couple of years' time, I suddenly think, oh, I would have quite liked that skin after all, it'll be too late. So I will get them while I can, but I've got plenty of time to do that. I might even this summer even do the mind-numbingly boring hidden skin for Retribution as well, because I've got the protection of the Holy One, because you do that just by doing content. It's easy. Whereas the Ret one, you've actually got to go and be bored for a few hours or a few days, or from what I've heard. So I may sort that out this summer while I'm doing other stuff. I mean, just as an opposite thing, I remember the class I quite liked playing when Age of Conan first came out, and I didn't play it for very long after that because it started off well and then ended up rubbish. There was this melee mage in it, so you were effectively a caster, but you know, also had melee abilities, used a big two-handed sword, all the rest of it. So that was quite... So there's plenty of interesting things you could do. Obviously, we want the reverse. We want, like, ranged ones now. We don't want any more melee. We've already got too many. Would it be worth keeping hammers instead of switching to blade until I get the 4 set from Tomb? No. Don't use Divine Hammer on single target bosses. Like, there was someone saying to me yesterday when I did my Kill Jaden video, oh, you should use Divine Hammer on this because of the ads. There's loads of ads on Heroic. No, there's not. There's like hardly any. And they're up for only a few seconds. And you look at the logs and you can see, okay, there are a few people who do lots of damage if you look at the ranks with Divine Hammer. But there's even more that have done it with Blade of Wrath. You've always got to consider the fight, and different guilds will do it in different ways. But the way we were doing it, those ads did not last long. They were down very, very quickly. You'd get almost no use out of it. So the only one I used Divine Hammer on would be the 2 Naga bosses. You would definitely use it on. You'd use it on Desolate Host. And there's a couple of others you could use it on, but you not necessarily have to. So I am now packing tomes. I am now making sure I've got tomes equipped with me, which is not something I had to do very often in Nighthold. There were a couple of bosses where it wasn't worth taking Divine Hammer, and it was literally 2 bosses. Whereas now it's different. Now that it's been nerfed, you would only take it if you're definitely going to get good use out of it. And that requires that there be ads up for a reasonable proportion for the fight. And not dying within a few seconds. But anyway, as I say, we're coming towards the end, sort of, right about the 2-hour mark. So I'll give it a few more minutes as usual, of course, if anyone wants to throw anything else out. And then I'll get off and... I suppose put together my review. Desolate Host Hammers is good. Doesn't matter what side you're on, because there's ads up, and they're up for long enough for you to get your use out of it. And then at the end as well, when you're finishing off whichever boss it is, whether it's that Shadow Priest woman or whether it's the engine, you're also able to cleave onto the main boss as well. The actual, what I assume is the Desolate Host. Yes, if you have ads, it will obviously be. But the thing is, you've got to think, how long are those ads up for? If they're up for a decent proportion of the fight, which they are on the 2 Naga bosses and Desolate Host, then yes. If they're not, then no. What tanks do I prefer for raiding? I prefer the ones that don't die and don't move bosses away when I'm trying to hit them during Crusade. That's the ones I prefer, which are not the ones we've got, so I just have to put up with it now. If I've got wings up, I don't want anything moving. But other than that, I don't know. Obviously, like, I mean, at the moment we have a warrior tank, and we have now a blood DK who was guardian, but changed to blood DK, which is suitable for some things. Like, for example, on Kill Jaden was able to sort of AoE grip the ads together on the phase where we get Illidan's sights. That was quite handy. Which melee unfriendly ads? Oh, well, you know. I think some of them are just unfriendly in general. The only ones that are really bad are the ones between Sisters and Desolate Host. Are they? Is it those? I think it's those are the ones. Most of them are fine. But those ones that... Yes, it is. It's the ones leading up to Desolate Host. They're quite nasty. Oh, thanks, Blasty Face. Well, as I say, I'll do my review. Hopefully it will be out tonight. I mean, actually doing the review was easy. But it's all a question of, do I go through all my videos and try and find suitable scenes, or do I just put some random stuff in the background and deal with that? I don't know. If I did the second one, obviously it'd be quite quick and easy to do tonight. If I don't, then it all depends on how quickly I can find the scenes I need. Is there a minimum crit that Virtue's Blade can become useful? There will inevitably be, but it won't be a set crit, because it's, you know, in reality it's not just above this crit, it's useful, and below it it's not, because there's a balance of stats that work, so you just have to keep simming it. But I strongly suspect you will not find that level of crit, whatever it happens to be for you. I've not come across anyone showing me a sim that says, oh look, under these circumstances Virtue's Blade's pretty good. But I mean, that's the answer to everything this expansion, and may not go away next expansion, which is unfortunately to sim it. At the same time, you are on fairly safe ground if you're in reasonable raid gear, especially if you're going to get the tier 22 set. Well, no, tier 24 set now. Once you've got the tier 24 set, you'll be on fairly safe ground taking Zeal, Final Verdict, Blade of Wrath for single target, and Divine Hammer for cleave and AoE fights. Yes, there are a number of talents that are unlikely to see use. Execution Sentence can actually sometimes just sneak ahead, but that's with good play. You know, unless it's going to be way ahead, there's no point in taking it. Consecration. I have actually thought about taking Consecration on the Naga bosses. It might be okay, but I don't think it's a clear winner, so... and it's also one of those, as your guild gets better and kills the ads quicker, it'll be less useful, so it's probably not worth it in the long run anyway. And I suppose... actually, maybe... No. I was thinking Desolate House, but even then, you're just safe with Final Verdict. But Zeal, once you've got tier 24 set, Zeal is very likely to become the best Crusader Strike option. But again, it's one of those things you have to sim it for yourself, because it's different. It's the same with the legendaries now. It used to be the case you would just take the cloak and the belt if that's what you had, whereas now it's a bit more. There's several that are very, very close together and can depend on the fight and your own gear.
Well, I don't know. I suppose it depends on what mode you're doing it. On the Naga bosses, there isn't really any moving outs to be done. See you later, Jack. Yeah, consecration. Yeah, is yeah, it has to be clearly useful to be. Same as execution sentence. It's no good if you sim it and it looks a little bit better than final verdict. It's got to be a lot better. And there aren't any fights so far that I've seen in Tomb of Sargeras, even on Mythic, that look like that. So yeah, it's going to be final verdict in the first row. But anyway, I think that's where we're finished as well. Anyway, so thanks for coming. I will be streaming my Guilds raid tomorrow. That's also going to be 7 PM UK time, same time as this was started. You won't necessarily hear a lot because I tend to turn off the Discord. You'll be able to hear me, but you won't be able to hear in the Discord because they can't be trusted to behave themselves. So I turn them off. And there's also other reasons. And then I'll also be streaming a bit of gameplay on Saturday afternoon, which for a while has been Elder Scrolls Online, but I did on a whim, did some actual World of Warcraft gameplay on last Saturday, which I'll probably continue. It'll be on an outlet, it won't be on my main. So that's on Saturday, like 3 PM UK time. But it's also on the offline screen when I turn this off as well. So thanks for coming, and I shall see you later.